Hello there, 605 team. Welcome today. I'm broadcasting here from my basement for a change as opposed to my messy upstairs office. Um, Today's topic I wanted to chat with you about was a little bit about prepping you for your diesel case. It is a bigger piece of work for you. And as I said in my write-up, I'm not going to over-guide you on exactly what you want to do and what your positions are and what your thoughts are. But I did want to share a few thoughts with you. First off, remind you this case is extremely complicated, extremely rich, has so many different issues. Make sure that you do not spend your time reiterating what happened in the case. A little bit, but not a lot, because you'll use too much of your precious ink, so to speak, on facts. And that's not what this is about. It's about hitting on so many different issues, so many different failures, so many different levels. How much of it was the government? How much of it was the CEO? How much of it was management? How much of it was employees? How much of it was the regulators? Could they really be that stupid that was Volkswagen that much smarter than regulators around the world because they managed to fool the European Union, the US, other major countries? So this is a very, very broad, complex topic, and I want you to address it that way. What I wanted to talk to you today is about one aspect that you can't ignore, and it's only one of many issues in this case, and that is the concept of ethics and how companies become ethical. And I gave you some materials on that. I wanted to share a little more in my words. Um, Ethics are something that is very easy to lose and very, very hard for a company to develop. There are some highly ethical companies. Ones that come to mind, I gave you Starbucks, is known and consistently rated as one of the most ethical companies there are. Many people may not agree with some of the views taken by the now deceased founder of Chick-fil-A, but they are a highly ethical company in the way they operate. Um, and ethics never can start at the bottom or the middle and work its way up and down. Ethics must come from the top. And companies who have leaders who don't spend a lot of time focusing on ethics for their company, they're simply not going to have an ethical company. Now, ethics comes in many flavors. You can have outright frauds. Okay, you can do what MCI did, for example, MCI WorldCom, which was the largest corporate fraud. Keep in mind, Bernie Madoff was not a corporate fraud; that was a hedge fund. But MCI was the largest corporate fraud, about 13 billion, as best as the SEC can figure it out. And that was, frankly, outright cooking the books. I mean, that's the ultimate, true, old-fashioned fraud. Clearly, a lack of ethics. But now you get into fuzzier areas like what happened at Volkswagen. Um, the CEO took the hit, the CEO resigned. We don't know yet. Well, did the CEO know? Even if the CEO didn't know, isn't the CEO ultimately responsible? Because if ethics have to start at the top and the CEO didn't set that environment that created a ethical company or put the right incentives in place that didn't force people to make poor decisions that they may not have made in a different environment, ultimately that CEO is responsible and they can't run away from it. This is a case of ethics where somewhere in the corporation, doesn't have to be at the very top, maybe in the middle, there was pressure. There was pressure to make targets. Maybe the targets were unreasonable. Maybe the employees felt that they had too much of their personal stake on the line, so they came up with a way to fake it, and they fooled all the regulators around the world for a long, long time. Now, as the case pointed out, the culture at Volkswagen was a little bit of there are orders and we follow them, and they don't rock the boat a lot, and that may be true. Um, but That's not the only type of ethics. Clearly, that was their ethical situation. Take Wells Fargo, for example. We've all heard of what's gone on at Wells Fargo. I mean, their fraud was not of the same type as an MCI WorldCom or what Volkswagen did, but they defrauded their own customers. They did things unethical, and that came from the top. It was a different kind of pressure. The top pressured the bottom so much that the bottom came up with ways to beat the system so they could make their targets. And the problem was the executives of the company, they knew about it and they didn't stop it. They didn't stop it until they were caught, and even once they were caught, they tried to deny culpability. But again, ethics starts at the top and it has to work its way down. So there are many different ways that a company can be ethical and not ethical. It doesn't have to be your old-fashioned fraud. It doesn't have to be fooling the regulators like Volkswagen, or it doesn't have to be just pressuring the lowest level of employee to do things that are unethical, and top management turned the other way. They turned a blind eye. And then you have to ask yourself, well, where's the role of government? Okay, where does government fit in with corporate ethics? I personally don't think government should tell corporations exactly how they need to set a set of ethics and what they should do, even though under Sarbanes-Oxley law, every corporation, it's a public corporation and subject to Sarbox, they must have a code of ethics for their company. But a code of ethics could just be words, or it really could be the way Starbucks operates and the way they live. So, just having a piece of paper doesn't make you an ethical company, and I think we all understand that. So what you have to think about is, how does government play a role here? First off, question one is, how did the government go on so long before they figured this out? Were they just negligent? Were they lazy? Were they simply outsmarted by the engineers at Volkswagen? It's kind of hard to believe that everybody in the world was outsmarted by those engineers. Maybe, could be true, the investigation's not over. Or did government just not put the work and effort into ensuring that they were compliant with the laws? Then the question that has to roll through your mind is, once the government figured this out, yes, they took action. Yes, they fined the company. Yes, the CEO of Volkswagen resigned. Yes, because of those fines, the company's going to have a lousy financial year. Yes, it's going to hurt. People won't get their bonuses. I know how that stings. I had a year when I didn't get a bonus. It wasn't because of a fraud. The company simply had subpar performance and they didn't pay any of the executives bonuses. Believe me, it wasn't pleasant, but I still had food on the table. It's a passing thing, and you get over it. It's a one-year event, and the next year, hopefully, things get back to normal from a financial performance. But ultimately, when a fine is simply levied, think about it. Who really gets hurt? Management, 1 year. Employees, maybe that 1 year. But ultimately, it's the shareholders pay for it. So the least culpable people in the entire chain here are the ones that pay effectively for the fine, because if you fine a company, that really is coming from the shareholders' money. That could have been returned to the shareholders, it could have been invested, they could have bought stock back, they could have done anything with that money for the shareholders. So ask yourself, is the right move simply for the government to fine a company like Volkswagen or Wells Fargo or any of these other companies, or why hasn't the government put anybody in jail? Now, everybody has a different opinion on that. I personally believe that the only way you will get corporations to truly behave is if somebody pays a larger penalty than just having the shareholders' money penalized and they go on with their lives. And typically these executives have already become very wealthy. They've made their money. They've got hundreds of millions of dollars in stock, etc. So how badly are they hurt? I gave you the example of the LIBOR situation, and only one very low-level person at a bank in the entire world went to jail over LIBOR, and that cost a lot of people a lot of money and put a lot of distrust in the banking system. So as you do this, think broadly about ethics. Think broadly about where does the government's role start? Where does it stop? What things can the government do to truly be effective? Because, the government's been fining companies for a long time. They fined the banks, and then the banks go right back to some of the bad behavior, and then they got to fine the banks again. When does it stop? When does government play a larger role? I have an opinion. That does not mean my opinion is your opinion. The whole point of this course is for you to develop your opinions about the roles that corporations play, business, and how it affects overall society. So anyway, I just wanted to give you all a little bit of food for thought as you kick off your work for this case. A lot of work to be done. I hope you do a great job. It's a very interesting piece of work. I'll sign off for now, and I'll catch you next time we talk live or live via video. Take care.